You know what that music means. It's that time, but on a new night. Hey, what is going on here? What are we doing? It's not Wednesday.
Right. It's not Wednesday, but this is a total different focus, Andy. We're focusing on mental wellness, which to
Well,
me
I'm
is
in the
really,
right spot
you're in the
then.
right spot because we know. In fact, we decided to start a whole podcast that really became a counseling session for you, Andy. That's really what we're here to do.
Well,
So,
thank you
All
very
about
little.
you, Andy.
yeah, that's right. And I had to bring on the expert. So, look, I'm very excited to get the band back together. We used to do this a couple years ago. It's actually we were just talking about it pre-COVID, and we have none other than the Patty Mohler in the house. Patty, how are you doing?
Hi, great to see everybody. Thank you. It's nice to be back with the
Yeah,
boys. It's
it
been
is.
too long, too long. So this is fun. I always get excited about these. The conversation always flows easy. So it's always fun.
Yeah, Patty, there for a while, people would hit myself up and hit Melinda up, that does the marketing. And they would say to us is what is Convene? Is Convene a mental health website, because, I was always interviewing you. We are always talking about these topics. And, there for a while, that's what we did. And so for me, I kind of pulled back off of that and we were focusing on growing the business. But I just see that, especially even before, but now post COVID, I said it to you before, I did not give COVID the credit that it was due for messing with our mental health and our mental wellness. And it really changed a lot of things that are going on in America, across America. So you want to touch on that real quick?
Yeah, I'm so glad you did. Those of us that are trained in trauma have been crying about, trying to get the word out, not crying necessarily, but trying to get the message out that what we experienced during COVID is pretty much everybody in the world is experiencing post-traumatic stress. It's pretty hard not to have the barrage of media coming at us and telling us how many people are dying per day and how many body bags are lined up in hospitals, and you could be next. And so that whole feeling really brought on that post-traumatic stress. And those of us in trauma said, it might appear that we're doing okay right now, meaning in 2021, we were talking about it. Those of us in trauma said, hang on, it's not going to be until 2025 that we really see the full-fledged, and it won't be from 2025, which I think we're seeing it earlier in 24, some in 23. But for the next 10 years, we'll be dealing with this of how to come out of it and what it's meant to us physically and mentally. And so many people come into my office and will say, I am so tired of a doctor saying there's nothing wrong with me, that it's just in my head. And I have to say, I think it is. Not that your symptoms aren't real, not that the pain that you're experiencing is not real, but it is that we've had to go in and really, really help with the psychological aspect of what's happened to us in the last several years. So it's somatic issues. And I get questioned all the time, why are you seeing somebody for body issues? Well, it's mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
And so we can't separate them. And when we don't have medical reasons of why your gut hurts or why your head hurts or why your ankles are just pounding, then we send it to people like me, and we go in and we do trauma work because we all experience trauma. And we held it so close. I call it stacking and stuffing. We just had to stack stuff, and then we had to stuff some more in and stack some more. And I am not even talking about your grandmother dying or being ill, your loved one getting cancer, your dog may be passing away. I'm not talking about things in life, your job stresses. I'm simply talking about what the pandemic did. So then I have to take in all those other things, and we just have to tease them out and go moment by moment. And that's a struggle. That's hard for people to do.
Well, it changed communication. It changed,
Yeah.
people were isolated so much during that time. And so, for some of our younger generations, they weren't forming those bonds like they needed to. They weren't able to communicate face to face, all those different things. And then for adults, human touch is very important, that interaction, that being able to talk to somebody, give somebody a hug, being able to interact with somebody. And so it changed fundamentally the way that we communicated. And we're going to get into that a little bit more, but It did. It really did.
Yeah, and you saw my posts, they were almost daily. People reach out to your nurses, reach out to your mental health therapist, reach out. We were burned so out in the very beginning. I think you and I had talked about that. I think my days went from normal days to probably 14, 15-hour days of trying to really help people. And I am single, and that I was one of those people that was greatly affected by it. And to be honest, and I see Lisa on here. Hello, Lisa. But it was absolutely my own pet therapy dog that I hired to have in my office that became my own
Yeah.
therapy dog, right? It was somebody to touch. We know that you do give Oxycontin, or oxytocin back and forth, from an animal to a human. And so just being able to stroke that animal was probably the one thing I say it was able to keep me going.
Yeah. Your workload, I remember having a conversation with you and you said, I can't keep up. She goes, and you said to me, I can't keep up. And that's even just seeing the patients and the people that I'm working with, but I can't even get to the other stack that's on my desk.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I'm
Well,
still, I think all of us are still there. I think we had a little bit of slowdown right around the holidays. That's to be expected. And then, it's ramped right back up. We've got, now we have to deal with all the family stuff that happened
mm,
over the holidays, right? So
yeah,
it's just always, it's not going to end for anybody that is in mental health counseling. We're available. I love that the emphasis for you on this show is mental health wellness, because
wellness.
that's what we need to talk about. We go for our wellness checks every year. Most of us, most women go, most men go. Why the heck aren't we saying, let's go for our mental wellness check once a
Absolutely.
year? Just check in. How you doing? What's going on with you? It's so, so important.
Yeah. A couple of comments on that is like, talking to my daughters with that age group, too, is that they all their friends, 100%, all
Yeah.
their friends have a counselor or a
Yeah.
therapist or somebody they're seeing across the board, and if you don't, it's a little bit of change because if you go back when we were
Very.
younger, if you were seeing a counselor, you were seeing a
Something's
therapist,
wrong
it's
with
like,
you.
"What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
Now, if you're not seeing a counselor or a therapist, it's like,
You
"What's wrong with
don't?
you?" You
It's
know?
I'm seeing it from like that 30 age group down, that they've kind of broken through that barrier. They don't have a problem with going to marriage therapy. I'm seeing young couples kind of, and we'll touch on this in a minute, but I'm seeing the younger couples not being afraid to kind of come in and deal with this. They just have kind of helped us break the mold. It's 40 and above that it's still the stigma, and it gets deeper the higher we go.
Mhm.
It's just what we were raised, put on
Yep.
your big girl and panties and march. You don't have time to feel. What feel? What
Yeah.
Why would we do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a great conversation with Megan, my daughter, and I picked her up from Georgetown, and I know you and I had these conversations before. Like a lot of these kids, I think that they get, and I know I'm kind of touching on kids, but adults, kids, everybody, they let the anxiety overwhelm them.
Yeah.
And so, an example that I would use all the time is, "Hey, how are you doing? What's going on?" Well, I'm overwhelmed. Okay, well, what are you overwhelmed about? Well, I have, 3 exams next week. Well, guess what? That's life, and that is gonna be overwhelming. So the question is, are we giving you the coping skills and the tools that you need to deal with it? So one of my pet peeves that I've come to have a pet peeve, believe it or not, is that in schools we give a mental health day off. Well, what's a mental health day off? I say this all the time. If you're a 13 to 18-year-old boy, that means you're going to be at home playing PlayStation or Xbox. Why not have somebody like Patty Mohler come into the school and speak to them about mental wellness and coping skills and give them the tools that they need? And I think that's something that we have to kind of reframe what's going on. A mental health day off for some kids is not a mental health day off.
No,
Do they have food at home? Do they have, food in the cabinet?
fighting,
Yeah, people are
violence
providing.
in the home. Yeah,
Oh my
absolutely.
gosh, so there's so much that goes into it, but I think focusing on the mental wellness of like what we're talking about here is key. And so Megan, back to that conversation, Megan said to me, we were riding home. She goes, "Dad, I think I figured it out." And I'm like, "Well, what have you figured out?" And she goes, "Well, all those talks that we had about stress and anxiety and how that plays into school when I was, taking exams and trying to get my degree in biology. She goes, medical school is stressful. It's
Yeah.
stressful. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, so I have to learn to deal with the stress of medical school. And I was like, thank God but that's really where we're at in this world.
Right. And I think the more we talk about it, and keep that open, I've had more than, I started doing couples therapy probably 5 or 6 years ago now. And most of my couples come in and go, why haven't you been teaching this stuff in communication in junior high? Like if we had just learned how to communicate, you think of how much stress that would relieve if you know how to deal with conflict and have a healthy conversation, how to witness what a healthy conversation is, how to identify when a conversation is not healthy, and know how to exit or be able to speak your mind. So all of this is, you and I've gone round and round on that. I see Kate's on here. Thanks for jumping on in here, Kate. So, I just think it's so many of those things all combined. And that kind of led me into what, this conversation that I wanted to bring forward to tonight.
Yeah, this is a great conversation, and I think it is the biggest hotspot that we talk about. It really is with everybody because nobody knows how to handle it. So let's talk about it, and it's your hashtag.
Yeah,
FOBR.
so I started a hashtag last year. I just got so fed up, and I finally said it's hashtag FOBR. And I was talking to somebody that I had done my World Summit with, and she said, okay, what's that one mean? Because she saw me write it down. And she said, what's FOBR? And I go, fear of being real. And she went, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. And I go, just jump on Facebook at any moment. And it is the fear of being real. And so I, like anyone, you kind of hope it catches on like wildfire and goes through the system and people jump on. But it's not until I start talking about it and having a podcast about what is the fear of being real. And I want to talk about what the fear of being real is doing to not only ourselves, but to our young ones and what I see in my office on a daily basis. And it's really robbing us of our individuality. And we're just losing who we are as ourselves. And last year, I decided I was going to launch FOBR, right? And put it on Facebook. And I thought, well, I'll just put a picture out and state what I'll do. And so I sent it to our dear friend Matthew, and I knew he had filters. And I don't have any filters. So I was like, hey, I'm not going to let this project come through until January, but I'm going to send you a photo and I want you to kind of doll me up, but you have until January, right? And I said, just do whatever you think a normal filter would be. And within nanoseconds, like, right, that was at his fingertips, nanoseconds, this new picture came in and I was like, oh, shoot. Okay, well, I have plenty of time. It's December 1st. I have a month to write this. Andy, can you pull that up for us? It's the double one of me.
Yes.
So this is amazing. But you see this all the time, Pat.
Yeah, but I
time.
want to tell people what happened to me. The experiment was, here's this photo. I'm going to put it out on Facebook, and I want to talk about the fear of being real. And the picture of being real is here is 65 being real, right? And obviously, I don't know if you guys can see that well enough, but the one on my right, the darker one, I guess, was me just taking a picture. And you know full well that I'm going to send Matt a picture that I think is fairly decent in the first place. I'm not going to send him some, so I was like, oh, okay, I really like this picture. I'll send it. Within nanoseconds, the one on the left came back. And the experiment was going to be, you guys, here's who I am. Here's 65. This is what it looks like. But man, here's me, because all of a sudden I look 40, right? Like, I mean, I'm not sure who that is. But what happened is I was going to write this article for a month. So I was spending time writing this, and I was excited when I was writing it. But then something started to happen. I started not looking who I saw in the mirror. And then I noticed that I started feeling blue. And I started noticing that I felt somewhat depressed. And I was like, but why? I'm not doing anything. But I was writing every day, 5 or 10 minutes, just on this story, on a podcast, that what I'll do if I was going to do a TED Talk on this. Then I realized, what is happening to me? And I realized that by looking and focusing, I would pull that picture up. And I no more liked the person on the right. I was falling in love with the image on the left, and it was erased. My lines were erased. My humor was erased. My color features were erased. That became my true story, not the one that I was trying to say, hey, look at this, be careful, don't filter. It was literally what I was talking about happened to me. It literally happened to me. Then interestingly enough, come January, I posted my article and I posted my photos. Not one person read the article, not one, because all the comments were, Patty, I think you look great in both of those. I would choose either one. I wasn't asking you to choose. I wasn't asking you, but if you had read the article, it would have told you how depressed I had become, how obsessed I had become with my lines and my face and not looking at myself in the mirror. Nobody read the story. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is so, so terrible. So yes, I got out of that. I figured out, well, I'm a mental health therapist. I should be able to help myself a little bit. So I got out of that, right? So, but that's what we're dealing with. When I see, and every single time that you jump on a Facebook post, I want people to start looking about whether they're filtered. I think it is such a shame that we get on there and we see that not only parents, because you can't just filter yourself. This is what I was blown away with this year, is there are so many moms out there, here's my cute baby and here's me, but I can't filter me without filtering my 6-year-old.
Yeah.
So guess what? We are now raising another huge population of kids that'll grow up going, who was that? She was really cute.
Yeah.
She has perfect skin. And, you look out for these kids that were photoshopped or filtered through when they start coming up and start realizing that they don't look the same as in their photos, even as a child. It's going to be wildfire. And so do I think we all should have good lighting? Am I going to lie to you and tell you I don't have nice lighting here? Well, I'm not totally dumb. But I won't filter, I won't go through and make it all perfect and look great, because I know what happens when I look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this on the dating apps. Here's all these photos. And then you go meet somebody and, people are like, who are you?
Yeah.
Or you see them in the grocery store and you're like, wow, overnight you must have gained 30 pounds and had, normal features. But because of what we're presenting, people are, and I looked up the statistics because I knew that this was a point. During the beginning of COVID, when we all had to get on and deal with this lovely machine called Zoom, I got this for you. In 2021, plastic surgery was on the rise of 49.4%.
Really?
We can recoup at home, right? We were all isolated. You can kind of recoup, which is also interesting to me that it's an elective surgery and we weren't supposed to be doing them. But it was also 29.7 compared to 2019. On average, the amount of people in the world that had plastic surgery rose to over 33.5%.
Wow.
Because
amazing.
we don't like seeing this.
Yeah.
And we want it to be different.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kardashians.
Thank you, Zoom. Thank you, all of that. Absolutely. I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I also think it's up to us. And this is my message. Those of you that are parents out there, stop filtering. Stop allowing your children to filter. because it's creating such mental health problems. The body dysmorphia that I see in my office is so enormous. People aren't wanting to go out of their houses. They don't want to go on dates. They don't want to go to a football game because they know that for a long time they've done this presentation. They know they don't look like that, so they're going to have to show up and be real.
Yeah. And you know what? We're dealing with body image, both male and female. It's not just the young ladies, but males as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more prevalent in females. Let's be honest. We know that it's more prevalent in young females. But now they're trying to match up. They're trying to live up to this image, and guess what? The image is not real in a
Right.
lot of cases on social media. And now they're thinking to themselves, well, I don't look like that, or I'm not this, or I can't be that. And it becomes very tough. We've had the talks with our daughters. You're 5'2", so you're not ever going to be a 5'8" tall, skinny young lady. It's just not in your DNA. But those things are things that young ladies think about, and it's hard. And especially now you throw the filters on there and it's
Yeah,
brutal.
and we're gonna go down a slippery slope here, and I'll try not to do it, but, now we're seeing all the weight loss drugs, right? And so that's totally alternating, and that's another whole discussion for another whole day. But yeah, I think most people think that it's people, that it's older people that don't like the way they look. And I'm here to tell you that that is not true. They start playing with those phones, as early as 4 and 5 now, and they know how to filter and to move things and put ears on and do all those things very quickly. I think one of the things parents also need to get out of is stop posing your 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old little girls in the big model poses. That's not what they run around doing. They want to be 6, but parents won't put that picture out that they were just sitting there playing with a crayon. They have to stand up
Yeah.
and do all these poses with their legs and their bodies and their hips as early as 4. And we just have to bring awareness. That's not real. That is just not real. We're not letting these kids develop in a really natural, organic way. We are forcing them to have the filters and the poses, and it's very difficult on people.
I hate to say this, but that was very real in my house. My daughter is beautiful, but I don't know where she got this from, but my wife didn't pose her at all, but that was one posing little girl when she was 4, 5, and 6, let me tell you.
I think they learn it because and I'm a big person. I think we need to really limit the amount of social media our children have. And that's our parent issue. We can bring on, anybody that wants to talk about parenting, but that's our role. That's our job, is to protect our children and keep them from that. It's a tough one. I know it can be done, but I think you have to start the criteria so young. Hey, we're not getting a phone until X. And you have to start saying that around 2, right? And so it's not to wait until they're 12 or now it's 9 and 8 that they have their phones. But it's to set that limit that you're not getting a phone until you're X, and so they might argue with you, but they've heard it since they were 2. So, oh, well,
Yeah.
but if you wait to have that conversation until they're 9, game over. They're already done.
I think it's important, and I think a lot of parents don't do this, but it's important that parents educate themselves on social media,
Right.
on the pitfalls of social media, on the maybe the positive social media are. And here's what I mean by that is, back if I was, let's say, dating my wife in school, I would write her a letter all during class and not pay any attention to the teacher. And then I would fold it up in a little paper football, and then I would hand it to her going to the next class.
You would
That's not how these kids communicate, right? It's the phones, it's the
sure.
Snapchat, it's all of those things. And so it's a catch-22 that you're living in, because guess what? It's not going away.
No.
But parents need to educate themselves and put the controls and all those things in place and be
Boundaries.
present in that, in the boundaries. And if you're not doing that, if you're not smart on it, you're not, knowing that if you're not paying attention and you don't have access and you see that your daughter, for example, is out there filtering herself, that's a problem. That could lead to even a bigger problem. And that's kind of what you're talking about, is that, making them comfortable in their own skin and who they are and all those different things as they grow up. Because again, it's going to lead to further self-doubt and issues about, life.
I was listening to Matthew McConaughey do a podcast.
Mhm.
And he came on, and I thought it was brilliant. They had asked whether or not his children had any social media. And he said, no. And he said they are not allowed to have it until after their 16th birthday. And he said, why on earth would I just say, have at the world? He said, I want my children to know who they are before they will be influenced by everybody in the world of how they should dress, what their hair should look like, what size they should be, what shoes they should wear, what dog they should have. He said they will never be allowed before they fully know who they are by 16. And he goes, I'm aware they're not going to fully know who they are. But he said there will not be a single chance that the world's going to tell them what to think about themselves before they know what to think about themselves. Now, isn't that phenomenal?
It is. And it's giving them the confidence in themselves, the mind, body, spirit, like you're talking about, giving them to know that they're okay to be themselves and it's okay to, be who they are. So how is FOBR received? How are people, the fear being real? How do people look at that? And have you had the chance to really kind of talk to the younger generation about it, and how do they receive it?
I think they're somewhat aware. I think again that 30-year-old are far more aware of some of the things that they're seeing that are negative. I think the younger ones can't quite see that yet. They might be aware, but they're also the ones being influenced by it. How is FOBR being received? First of all, people ask me what the heck I mean by it.
Yes.
Right. It's about, are we willing, even as women and men, to go to the grocery store without makeup? Like, this is real. Can I go and meet a girlfriend for breakfast in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt or a sweatshirt? Because that's real. Can we start role modeling being real for our children? That's a big one for me. If we're going to liposuction, do weight loss drugs, be on our phone and Botox our face, and then turn around and tell our children not to do that, that isn't going to work. So I'm not sure where that starts. I wrote out, some codes that I have for FOBR, and one is resilience. They're not building resilience. And so I want kids to start to learn how to be able to say, well, I don't care if you like that brand or that shoe. How can we build up resilience that not everything is perfect? I do have, flaws, but I'm a kind person and I'm a wonderful person. And those things kind of don't matter much. How do you build up that resilience that I'm strong and I can handle comments? We don't teach kids that, so they get barraged with all that negativity. And they don't have the resilience yet. We have to teach them about how to build resilience. Love of self. They're missing out on that fear of being real. This is what I really am. So that love of self. Again, I think it's that thing when that happened to me. I'm sitting there looking at that photoed or filtered image of myself, and all of a sudden didn't like that other photo. And then goodness, didn't like the person I saw every morning in the mirror. And it took me about a week to figure out what was happening with me. And I know what I'm doing. So how are we helping kids when they don't have somebody to talk about? And I always tell parents, you have to teach self-esteem from inside out.
Yeah.
It's not how pretty you are, what a pretty shirt you have. It's, I love the strength. Oh my gosh, your eyes are just flashing. They're just exuding happiness today. That's from the inside. Oh my gosh, your legs, they were so fast today in track. That is so cool. You are so born with beautiful body that just glides you down that that track. That's esteem from the inside. How did you do on your grades? I got a B, or I got a C. Oh my gosh, rather than going, well, what was wrong with the A? Go with their simply sharing joy with you that they're so excited. So what did you like about a B? Well, 2 weeks ago it was a D. I worked so hard. You got to build from that inside,
Yeah,
right? Um,
absolutely. On
I
that
think
note,
what, yeah.
well, on that note, we put so much pressure on our kids for
Mm,
grades. It is
yeah,
phenomenal, and we if we talk about the state of North Carolina, in the state of North Carolina, if you don't get accepted to go to North Carolina, UNC Chapel Hill, you have failed. I mean,
right.
and it's the most ludicrous thing that I've ever seen in my life because, I went to UNC Greensboro and I'm okay, you know, you
Yeah,
know, and
Debatable.
it's true. But the point is
I agree.
we
Oh,
put so we put so much pressure on them. And if I went to Megan, for example's friends, and I went to, one of her friends named Ashlyn who didn't get into UNC and thought the world was coming to an end. And I said, Ashlyn, how did you like NC State? And how do you like law school at Campbell? She's in law school,
yeah,
So yeah, she's succeeding. She's flourishing. And
yeah,
so I think sometimes those pressures are just hard to your point.
yeah.
I
Can I come
must
back to
be.
a? Oh, go
I'm.
ahead.
I was just gonna say I must be the abnormal bird because we don't. We really don't put any pressure on our kids for grades, But neither one of them has had anything less than an A their entire scholastic career.
But I think because you exude that, Andy, probably, you role model that there are other things that are very important. And again, somewhere along the line, you've taught those kids that they want to be proud of themselves for getting an A, not that they're doing it for mom and dad. So whatever was instilled, and that's what I'm talking about, that kids learn, oh shoot, I don't want a B. I don't care about my parents, but I don't like the B or I don't like the A. That's what you instilled in those kids. So there was enough role modeling going on and enough conversation in your house about many other things and many other attributes that they had, Andy. But that's when they can go, oh my gosh, I want this A for me. It made me feel good.
Yeah,
And you
absolutely.
probably maybe asked a question of, well, what'd you think about that? I loved it. I worked my tail off. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not saying I'm so proud of you, you got an A. You probably asked a question. How's that make you feel? Loved it. That's esteem from the inside in.
Yeah.
It's either that or the daily beatings. I haven't figured it out yet.
That could be,
So
but I want to touch on two more if I can, because
Yeah.
I it's really important, I think, for me talking about FOPR. It's about comparison and empathy.
Mhm.
Right. And so again, that whole social media is that, again, I'm trying to fall off of, the fear of missing out. And it's the fear of being real is part of this, that we want to compare ourselves to everybody. If somebody's going to Disney, then I have to go here. And if somebody's going to that country, I need to go there. So I think learning how to just be really parents learning and taking courses on how to teach their kids not to compare. It's really hard. We had a saying when I grew up is keeping up with the Joneses,
That's
right?
right.
And so we had that, but I think the kids had their own version. And we're not doing a great job in this country, and not everybody is born with it, is empathy.
Yeah.
And empathy is being able to remove my own thoughts on a situation and literally step into somebody's shoes and try to peek in from inside their eyes and see it.
Yeah.
So that's totally different than sympathy. But empathy is, can I step into somebody's shoes, leave my own biases and thoughts about a certain event or situation, and can I see it through somebody's eyes? What would it feel like if this was me in that person's body?
Yeah.
And when you can teach people how to do that, oh my gosh, the world opens up to them and they can have empathy. And to me, the comparison, the resilience, love of self, curiosity, compassion, and empathy are my codes. And those are the codes for FOBR.
Yeah, and you know what? That's perfect. And I'll get those from you and make sure when I put this out and put the blog out that we really kind of we lay that out for everybody to read and everything like that because uh, it's important. I mean, what you're talking about, that fear of being, I see this all the time. Nowadays you have Snap Map, right? So you know where your friends are at any given time. And that's can be brutal at the same time because all of a
Oh,
sudden
yeah.
all of your friends are at
Pizza
the
joint.
restaurant or
Yeah,
at the restaurant or they're somewhere and you're not there and you're like, "Well, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I get invited to that?" And
right.
it really is this is something that is extremely hard on kids. Extremely,
Well, and
Um,
adults too. Let's
and adults
you
too.
keep going to
Yep.
kids.
I
So
do.
I
I keep going to
I
kids
know,
because
but I want to bring this back that
yeah,
it isn't any different than the mom sitting there and going, "Oh my gosh, they're all having a play date and I wasn't invited."
yeah.
Or, "Oh my gosh, all the girls are meeting down." So it's not just
Oh, it
kids.
is not, and I do tend to roll there because
I
that's the world
had
I live in.
I had one that was hilarious the other day. Somebody picked up their phone at the end of session and they were like, "Ha ha ha, Susie wants to know why I'm at Patty Mohler counseling." And I had a heart attack. Like, that's confidentiality. I didn't tell anybody you're here. Like, I'm like, What? I didn't bring, I don't even know who Susie is. Like, what? I mean, I'm panicked, right?" And she goes, "Oh, don't worry. My friends follow me all the time. It just shows you that I'm here." And I'm like, "Okay, but I didn't do that."
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that was just a heart attack. But they were like, and then they all thought it was funny. And they were like, "You don't think we all don't sit around and talk about the things you tell me, do you?" And I was like, "Hey, that's between you guys." But that really freaked me out to think
Yeah.
somebody was like, "Oh, she's sitting right in her office." I was like,
Yeah, and they
"Oh."
know. And
And
that's what it is. That snap map and where they are and when they're what they're doing and stuff like that it can cause issues across the board.
yeah,
It's very interesting. Um, yeah, and the empathy piece too. I think that it's hard for people to be empathetic to each other. And I think some of that is that people are so into themselves and their lives and what they have going on that they're not thinking about what everybody else has got going on. And it
I love
becomes hard.
Amy. I'm looking at her
Yep.
comment. Even adults say it's hard for us to have FOMO, and some people self-isolate when we feel we are missing out. Absolutely, isolations, and that's finding that resilience. Amy, one of the things that I talk about is finding that resilience is when you aren't invited to something, and how to build that up. And it's really real for so many people. And I just think that we've gotten so far away from having communication, having conversations with people. Empathy is something, again, that I think can be taught. It is not something that everybody is born with, but we can teach it. And it always goes back to I'm going to say this, Matt. Please, if you're listening, stop giving advice to anybody. And that's my number one. It was in my number
Yep.
one in the book. It's my number one anytime I say it. If somebody hasn't said, "Hey, Matt, I really need advice. Would you please give it to me?" Zip it. They're venting. They just need airtime. They just need somebody to hear them. And
Yeah.
so empathy cannot happen when we're advising somebody what to do, how to do it, when to go, when to sit. We just can't have empathy because we're too much in our brains thinking of the advice I'm going to give
Yeah.
somebody. And so we don't have enough time to stop and go, "Oh my gosh, I wonder what Patty's thinking right now." Like,
Yeah.
what's it like through her lens at this moment? You're too busy going, "Well, I'm going to tell her she should call so and so and she should go over and make this telephone call."
Yeah.
We lost that.
Well, Patty, and your school and going there, what is the number one, the most important skill that they teach you? Active listening. You
Oh,
have
yeah.
to, yeah, you have, and that's
Don't put me on the spot like
yeah,
that.
I
That was
know. That's
a
why I
bunch of
answered it.
years ago.
That's why I
I
put you on
know.
the spot, but I answered it right away
I'm
because
like,
like,
what?
what is this dude talking about? No, but
What a
it's active
bully.
listening. Yeah, no, it's active listening. But
Yeah.
that's again, I don't care who you are. That's in parenting, that's in marriage, that's in your relationship, that's in everything. And I think that's where we struggle. Is we want to, especially men, us men, but it's not just men, but we want to fix. I want to fix it. I'm going to tell you what to do. Yeah, my wife doesn't always need me to tell her what to do. She don't want me to tell her what to do. She wants me, and we're good about it now. We've been married, coming up on 29 years. She'll say, I just want you to listen,
Yeah.
and I've learned over time, just listen, just let her talk. But that's
Look at
hard. That's a hard
Kate's
skill.
comment. Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
We make up so many stories in our minds that keep us stuck in fear, isolation, and negative self talk. Changing the inner narrative is such an important skill to learn. Absolutely, Kate. And thank you for, chiming in and saying that. One of the things that we do and we know for a fact is all humans say on average 30,000 negative messages to ourselves a day. And what we need to do is what one of the assignments I always give my clients is they have to write out all their negative messages for 5 days. And people will usually say, oh, I don't really have negative self messages. And I'm like, just play my game. And I had a man come in this week and he threw his laptop down on the sofa and he said, I don't know whether to really just scream at you and how angry I am at you, and I'm thinking, what did I do? And he said, I don't think I've ever had a harder assignment in my
Yeah.
life than to sit there. And I said, yeah, it's those things that you say when you forget milk. I'm such an idiot that I didn't get the milk. Oh, I'm so dumb. All of that's that negative inner
Yeah.
critic. And again, we can't have empathy for others if we don't have it for ourselves and compassion.
Do you know the first assignment I had in my counseling degree? I don't know if I've told you this before. I had to write my own eulogy.
Oh, yeah. We do
I
that
think
at rehab centers.
it's the best. It's the best thing I've ever done. And a big part of the lesson learned there is if you can't write your own eulogy, if it's not true, if you can't put it on the paper, and you can't look in yourself in the mirror
Yeah.
and know that that's how you're living, then okay, maybe it's time to self-evaluate and make some changes.
Yeah.
So how could I sit there and help somebody if I can't even live that life that I'm thinking I need
Somebody
to
was
live?
in the office today and we were having this conversation, fear of being real out on a date and how do you be vulnerable, and so he was very expressive and he was very good and he made a comment and I looked at him and I said, interesting. I had an empty chair across from him and I said, picture your best friend in that chair. And so you could see him kind of look over there and look at the chair. And I said, I want you to tell what you just said to yourself to your best friend. And he went, what? And I go, huh? And he was, I'd never say that. And I go, then why are you saying it to yourself?
Yeah.
And he went, oh my gosh. I can't even believe. I said, you don't
Yeah.
treat yourself like your best friend. And so there again, how can we have empathy for yourself or compassion and grace for yourself if you're going to constantly beat yourself up?
Yeah, well, Lisa made the comment earlier, and I didn't say it at the time, but I wanted to say it. It's like, and that's what she said. If you can't look at yourself and love yourself, then how do you move on? If you have to be
Right.
something that you're not, then how can you love yourself? And that's what FOBR is all about. You
Yes.
have to be able to look at yourself and love yourself and have that confidence in yourself.
So I know we're not there yet, but I will ask all of you to start using the hashtag FOBR. That should be
Yep.
at the bottom of everything and top of everything you write. Andy, I sent you one more picture. I pulled this was a Facebook ad. So I'm not stealing somebody and putting them out in public. She's a model. So I'm not breaking any.
Copyright rules.
Yeah, or
You're
whatever.
giving credit where credit is due.
Right. She's a model and I didn't just kind of grab somebody. But this is a really good photo of what filtering is and what it does to people. I think that might be, yeah. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
I mean, it's just, she's stunning, right? But that is about as filtered as you can get.
Yeah.
And you can take that down, Andy. Thank you. But it's about as filtered as you can get. There's not one single flaw on her face. And of course, the ad is I'm 61, right? Well, that was mine. I'm 65. I put my picture out that was on the left of being 65.
And
And
pull
people
that
are
back up, Andy. Pull that the
the one
side
of
by
me.
side again. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to
You're
have to
killing
do
me,
therapy.
Smalls.
Yeah, and then I'm going to have to do therapy tonight after seeing
We
this.
can have a call. We can have a call. We can extend. But the point is, it's so important because again, knowing, and I think it's interesting how you went down the rabbit hole, how you started
Oh,
looking
that
at it
was to
going,
me, that was the best. Out of 1 week, I just tanked. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to see my friends. Yeah, you guys can see it on the right. That's just me in natural light. And then on the left, that's the filtered one. And all of a sudden, I really like the one on the left. But then you lose all your personality. Every one of these wrinkles, thanks, Andy, that's enough for me. Every one of these wrinkles has been earned. I can tell you every one of these is from a child not being home on time, or, something happened with work. So it's who we are. And that's was part of my thing is let's not erase our individuality. Let's be curious about who we are. Let's be curious about why I have that mark. Let's be curious about who I want to be and who I am right now versus filtering ourselves and being so afraid of the person who we really truly are. We have to get back in tune with that. And I hope, I know Kate's doing the kids work, and she's so right. We have to teach these kids so early, 6th grade, 5th grade, to teach a narrative, what the home life and the things that they're telling themselves. That's an old chapter. What's the new chapter need to be? What's our new narrative?
Yeah, absolutely. And Amy does the same thing. Amy's a retired teacher, and she teaches in school and is a speaker around the country in schools talking about this stuff. So she can use FOBR.
Look at her. She's challenging everybody. Look at that.
Exactly.
Challenge accepted.
Post a social media non-filtered. It can be freeing. Yes, it can.
Accepted and completed.
That's right.
Nice.
I don't use filters.
Yeah, I don't. Look, I got a paralyzed face on the half of me. Not many people know that, right?
You may want to consider it, Matt.
And that's why I have no wrinkles on the other side, because I can't,
you can't.
So I got natural Botox. I can't smile, so I'm not stretching my face, But I'm proud of my face, Patty. I'm proud of it.
Absolutely. You earned that face.
I did. The anthrax shot did this to me. So there you go. For my country.
Yes.
Country and core.
And thank you for all your hard work for this country. You continue to do it today.
That's right. Me and Andy both
Yet
here, so that's a good thing, That's what Lisa said. I did a side by side just like you did, Patty, about a year ago. Yeah, and it is. I don't know. It's just such a hard thing, this social media thing, and it's not going away, and it's having such an effect across the board.
I think it's just it's continues to be about educating, getting to our kids earlier, getting our parents to just really tune in and doing a Matthew McConaughey and saying, I'm not going to let the world tell you who you are. You discover that, and then you can have social media. Parents need to do what they need to do and stop being so worried about what their kids think of them. That's my other one. I think that's real important to talk about. I'm seeing that a lot right now is the failure to launch. That means anybody from 18 to 70. And the failure to launch is because parents want to be their best friends. Yeah. And so when we want to have and be our child's best friends, and I see that by, oversharing, parents oversharing downward towards the children. I see that by one of the things that I think is very detrimental is when children are allowed to call their parents by their first name. You earn being a parent.
Yeah, I earned that name.
Is mom and dad. Like you earn that. And when people start referring to them as Steve and Jim and all those other names that people have, or Sue or Patty or whatever, that takes away the respect we get to earn as parents. And we became just one of the, somebody else that's just a child. Well, we're still a parent no matter how old our kids are, whether they're 40 or whatever age they are, we're still a parent. Yeah. And we need to still resume. Their kids are still looking to us for information, for role modeling. But when we put them in as our best friend, we don't seek our best friend sometimes for help because we don't trust our best friends.
Yeah.
Patty, it's funny I'm sorry, Matt.
Go ahead.
It's funny you bring that up because just, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, my kids came to me and, they were joking, but half joking, half serious. And they said, Daddy, which one is your favorite? And I looked at both of them. I said, what makes you think I like either one of you bastards?
That's right.
Problem
Good,
solved.
right? But have
Done.
you ever heard Deion Sanders talk about it, about ranking his kids? And it's actually pretty funny. And he'll
No.
say, yeah, I mean, he ranks them. He'll say, well, today you're number one, and that's because you're excelling here. And the next day, you might be number two. So you better keep doing a good job. But it's funny when he talks about it because he's challenging his kids to be the best that they can be, not
Yeah.
just on the sports field, but as a person. He has one
Right.
kid, that is not an athlete, but does amazing things with like videography and stuff like that. And so he's like, well, he's my best kid because look what this video he did of me. And
Yeah.
so he's
I'm really good in that
constantly,
video.
yeah, he's
He used
constantly
good
lifting his
filters.
kids. He used great filters and all that, and I look good. I look younger. I like I still be on the field. Yeah. No, I again, such an important topic. These topics they're top of mind because again, I think that, in America, especially post COVID, how we started the conversation, post COVID, and it was that way before, but even post COVID, because everything's still changing, we're struggling. I mean, we're struggling. I mean, but at sometimes me and the person that I am, I want to say, I got it, but life's not easy. So strap up your boots, get it on and let's go. And I think that you and I've had that conversation a little bit. I think we swung a little bit too far with
Too
our,
far.
we swung too far with what we did. And we didn't kind of keep it in the middle and saying,
Yeah.
life's not easy. It's, you have to grind. You have to do what you
I
need to do.
told a couple today that I'm working with, and well, both of the parents are struggling, but mom is really struggling right now. And she said even my daughters have noticed. She has three late 20s, early 20s. And I said, so what do you say to them when they say, mom, how are you? She goes, oh, I tell them I'm okay. I'm doing right. I'm doing just fine. I said, stop doing that.
Yeah.
And I said, they're not little children anymore. They're young adults. And I said, they need to see you be real. It's this fear of being real.
Mhm.
They're not little. You don't have to protect them. I'm struggling. They know she's struggling with depression. So why keep hiding it
Yeah,
and saying
absolutely.
I'm okay? Why don't you say, today was better than yesterday? Or this morning was rough, but man, I got myself together and, went outside for a walk and felt so much better. And just having you here is helpful for me. And she was like, I've never thought about that. And I said, how are they going to learn how to deal with female depression if it ever happens to them, if they don't learn from their own best teacher, which is you? But you
Yep.
keep putting on this mask of, I'm fine, it's all good. And they know it's not. So how are they supposed to trust you if you won't learn how to trust that you've raised them to be able to handle the truth, which is, I'm working on this. It's hard some days, and I'm going to continue fighting this battle. And
Yeah.
so I just think it's so important that when it's age appropriate that we take down the mask. Matt, you saw my son and I in a podcast go toe to toe on being vulnerable with one another and letting both of our masks down. And that was a powerful, powerful podcast when we talked about my depression and what gratitude did for me
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
effect that it had on him.
Yeah.
And that podcast, that moment for us changed us forever.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
changed us forever. And so that's what I was inviting my client. I told my client the same story about the podcast. And I told her, I said, your kids are okay to see you not be okay.
That's exactly, you just beat me to it because I was going to say it's okay to not be okay. It
Yeah.
is. It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to have ups and downs,
Yeah.
Key thing
That's
is just to
life.
not stay down, not stay
Yeah.
down. No, tomorrow's a new day. The
Yeah.
next 15 minutes is a new 15 minutes,
Yeah.
That was the podcast I was on before this because I was on a podcast before this and we were talking about that exact thing, you know.
And
Uh,
yet I don't, me, I don't like going into too much toxic positivity. It's all going to be good. You're all going to be fine. No, it's not. Right now I'm not, and I'm messy. And life is messy and humans are messy. That's okay. We
yeah,
love messy. I love messy. Lionel, the guy with the cloud and the
yeah,
thing on his back. We all love him. And he's
yeah,
a mess.
yeah. Well, and
Oh, I love
that's
him.
what I'm talking about, Patty. That's what I'm talking about is that we've generated this world that when something is off kilter, it's not right. And guess what? It's not just the bed of roses. Life is not a bed of roses that is perfect. People have money problems, people have job issues, people have relationship issues. And it's just part of life. And you have to learn to get through this and get to the other side and all that.
Which is what I call in my codes for FOBR. The number one is resilience.
Yeah. Resilience.
We have to start teaching how to be resilient. We've got a new term out there these days called a lawnmower parent, where they're just going with their lawnmowers and making sure everything's perfect. There's no adversity for kids, right? They
Yeah.
can't learn how to be resilient if they don't face some kind of adversity. And I'm not saying jump off a cliff, but when they struggle a little bit, let them struggle.
Yeah, they have
Let
to
them
struggle because
figure it out
that's
a
how
little.
we get better.
Yeah,
Decision making 101.
yeah.
And because you got the helicopter parents, and I like that, the lawnmower parents, helicopter
Lawnmower
parents,
parent,
you know.
new one.
Yeah. Oh, it's just amazing. Um, so listen, a couple of things real quick while we only got a couple of minutes left. If you haven't read the book Renew and Restore, go online, order the book. It's one of the best, most powerful. There it is, right there. Renew and Restore. Get in touch with Patty. Order the book. We did. I still tell people. I know Kate will say this. I've talked to her about it. Lisa, we did the book club. It
Yeah,
was one of my favorite things that we did, and it was one of the most powerful things that we did. A lot of tears shed on that and
yeah.
everything, and it was awesome because we'd go away, read chapter 1, chapter 2, and then we would come on to the live podcast and talk about it. And it was amazing. It was really, really cool. Yeah.
And that's still up on YouTube, I believe. You can go to my
Yeah.
channel, Patty Muller, and that whole book club. All those
Yeah.
chapters are
And we
still.
need to do it again because it was a powerful little
Yeah.
book site. The other thing I'll say real quick, and then we'll come back around, is the upper left hand corner donate button. Doc does this out of the kindness of his heart. So if you guys can give him $1, just $1 makes him happy. Isn't that right, Doc?
Make it 5 so we can get Matt through puberty again.
Okay.
That's fine. We never make it without you, Doc. So thank you very much. We're
Yeah,
there
thank
for everything that you do. This is going to be a regular occurrence. So I really appreciate you being on, Patty. We're going to do this. I've trying to tell you that it's Patty Mohler night once a month. We're going to talk about different topics and get in there and bring other people. This community is great. And I think it's timely, and I think it's going to be just one of the best things that we do. So, Patty, I'm going to let you give us the last words and take us out of here. And I appreciate you being on. FOBR, the fear of being real. Everybody use it. So,
Yeah. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Andy, for doing this again. Building on your resilience, self-love, gratitude, curiosity, compassion, and empathy. Those will help erase the fear of being real. So use the hashtag FOBR, fear of being real, and make it real. See what you
yeah.
can do tomorrow, tonight to make it real.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will be putting this up. I'll get those her words right there from Patty, so I can put it into the blog. And thank you so much for being here. Next Tuesday
Thank
night,
you.
we'll be back. I can't wait.
Bye, everybody.